This broadcast is brought to you courtesy of amateur radio station VK7AX in Ulverston, northwest Tasmania.
Greetings, listeners. This is VK3OTN, the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club of Australia, with this month's news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club for May 2026. I am Andrew, a VK3 Charlie Alpha Hotel. Details on when to hear the news and information bulletins are available at the club's website, www.raotc.org.au. VK3OTN is available on a wide range of radio platforms, HF, VHF and UHF, along with 2-metre repeaters, amateur television, DMR, that is digital mobile radio, and D-Star. These news broadcasts are available for download for up to 6 months, just in case you missed the original news broadcast from the RAOTC website. Just put RAOTC into your favourite search engine. If you'd like to contact the club, then why not send us an email? Our address is raotc@raotc.org.au. I hope you enjoy this month's news broadcast. Welcome to the latest RAOTC Club news for May 2026. The objectives of the RAOTC is to maintain the interest and original pioneer spirit of amateur radio, honour the history and heritage of our hobby, and encourage good fellowship amongst all radio amateurs. Full membership of the RAOTC is available to any person who has held or has been qualified to hold an amateur licence for a minimum of 25 years. Associate membership is available to any person who has held or has been qualified to hold an amateur licence for a minimum of 10 years. Associate members are entitled to all the privileges of full membership except the right to vote or hold office. An RAOTC member, on achieving 90 years of age and having been a member for a minimum of 10 years, automatically qualifies for 3 life membership. Membership subscriptions, which fall due on the 30th of April each year, start at $18 for a 1-year membership, so if you're not a member, why not give it a go for 12 months and see what you think? There is a sample copy of OTN on the club's website for you to download and peruse at your leisure. The address of the club's website is www.raotc.org.au. RAOTC subscriptions. The annual RAOTC renewal services should have been enclosed along with the latest OTN address sheets. The committee, along with our paid-up financial members, would be greatly appreciative if you could attend to this in a timely fashion. Now, as a matter of courtesy to members and other fellow amateurs, if you don't intend to renew, then kindly drop us an email and let us know. The club's email address is raotc@raotc.org.au. I want to thank John Ross, VK3 Mike Kilo, for assisting in recording some of the technical articles that are offered each month, so that gives everyone a little more variety from hearing me drone on for half an hour. Many of the technical articles here on the monthly news broadcast have previously appeared in OTN, or Old Timers News, the official journal of the club. The news broadcast serves several purposes. One of them is to disseminate last-minute information to members of the club and primarily draw attention to the club and to the wider amateur community that may not be aware of its existence. I also want to extend thanks to all of those operators that help disseminate the broadcast on a regular basis when time permits. As I've mentioned before, if you want to hear it on your local repeater on a regular basis when it's currently not available and you're able to help out, then please send the club an email. Western Australia. I've mentioned this subject before, however, we are still after someone from VK6 to take over doing the promotions for the local WA amateur radio news. Clive Wallace, VK6CSW, is not going to be able to do this forever. Peter, VK7PD, has stepped forward to help out with the promos for the national WIA news, and this is really appreciated. Peter is part of the VK7 WIA news team and will be familiar to those in Tasmania as well as those who listen to the VK7 amateur radio news at 9:30 on a Sunday morning. We still need someone local in VK6 for VK6. Last month I mentioned a great technical forum weekend called Antennapalooza that was held on a rural property near Druin, about an hour east of Melbourne. I'll talk a little about this in a later broadcast. It gave me an opportunity to meet up with amateurs that I've only met previously either on air or via email. One operator that I met up with was Jamie, VK3TZE, who is part of the team that enables the monthly news broadcast to go out on VK3 REC, which has a magnificent 2-metre coverage over most of Melbourne. AX prefix. Please remember that we are allowed to use it 3 times a year. Hopefully, many members were able to use the AX prefix recently, with Anzac Day being one of them, along with Australia Day and World Telecommunication Day, which is on May 17. So if you missed out, you've got another opportunity to use it on Sunday, May 17. So why not try using the AX prefix? For those that may have missed last month's broadcast, the stand-in speaker at the most recent Melbourne RAOTC luncheon was our Administrative Officer Peter Marks, a VK3TPM, and his presentation was entitled AI and Amateur Radio. You've probably at least heard of ChatGPT and perhaps asked a few general questions, but where large language models really shine is in software development. Peter Marks, VK3TPM, has been using Anthropic's Claude Code to develop software for amateur radio. A recent experiment was to do work on amateur radio's foremost example of AI, FreeDV RAID version 1, and was able to do months of expert work in just a day. Peter demonstrated practical examples of development with Claude and also brought us up to date on the latest advances in digital voice over HF, which is taking off around the world. Mick Amt, VK3 Charlie Hotel, was kind enough to record the talk, and it is now available for those who are unable to attend with a link to the YouTube video on the club's website. Go to www.raotc.org.au, then under the lunches menu, pun intended, select recordings and you can see and hear it along with many other previous technical talks. And finally, a note from our editor, Tim Robinson, VK3YBP. There is still time to get an article into OTN for the September 2026 edition. If you need any assistance with getting an article ready, or any advice on articles in general, then please send an email to the OTN editor, Tim Robinson, at otn@raotc.org.au. I'll repeat that email address, otn@raotc.org.au. We're always interested in any activities from RAOTC members. New members and silent keys. Today I am pleased to welcome the following new member to the RAOTC. Robert Marshall, a VK3 Delta Sierra, recently became full member number 1903. The committee looks forward to you enjoying a long and rewarding membership of the RAOTC. Silent keys. It is with regret I report the following silent key that has come to the attention of our membership officer. Peter Elton, a Victor Kilo 4, a Victor Quebec, member number 1790. Previously, Peter held the call signs VK2YEI, VK2EPE, VK3FPE, VK3 Kilo Golf, and finally a VK4 Victor Quebec. Peter was an active amateur and served on the EMDRC committee for several years. Let us pause a moment in memory of our departed colleague. And that's about all the news we have for you this month. In this month's broadcast, I have several articles that I hope you find interesting. Bill, VK3BR, will give us some thoughts on the hazards of mobile phone towers as it was perceived in 2014 from an article originally written by Ron, VK3AFW. It's been interesting to note that a decade or more ago, any proposal to erect a mobile phone tower in the local neighbourhood was often met with strong opposition, with all sorts of nonsensical and ill-informed arguments put forward as to why it wasn't wanted. And now, in 2026, those who haven't got access to mobile phone service now campaign strongly to get it, at least around election time. My, how the tables have turned. This will be followed by this month's feature article by John, a VK3MK, who will tell us about the memoirs of Winston Nichols, VK7EM, from a recent OTN article, My Amateur Television Life, an article that appeared in a recent edition of OTN, or Old Timers News. So now, I'll pass the microphone over to Bill, the VK3BR, so please take it away, Bill.
Radiation and mobile phone towers. This item was written by Ron, VK3AFW, RAOTC member number 824. And Ron writes, "There is confusion in the mind of the public over what constitutes radiation and what is dangerous. Personally, I blame the educators, but that's another story. Fear arising out of ignorance, not in my backyard syndrome, and venal considerations, I am sure, motivate the campaigns against mobile phone towers and other masts carrying antennas, including amateur radio installations. The authorities have responded by sponsoring research and mandating rules for exposure to RF and other radiated energy sources. In Australia, the ACMA has imposed rules on radio amateurs. Radiation is a term that covers any emitted energy that travels out from a source and propagates according to well-known laws. This includes radio waves of all wavelengths, as long as thousands of meters and as short as 1 millimeter. It also includes even shorter wavelengths that intrinsically have the potential to cause ionization, such as X-rays, nuclear decay, or fusion emissions and cosmic rays. It also includes the greatest cause of cancer arising from radiation, sunlight. I've yet to see protesters on the streets demanding that the sun be turned off or moved to another suburb. Campaigns against mobile phone towers have continued over 2 decades or more. Paradoxically, many of the protest supporters can be seen holding their mobile phone to their heads for long periods each day, apparently ignorant of the much higher field strengths from the phone as compared to the tower. I have seen the results of RF surveys in Melbourne, and most of the RF soup comes from TV and FM radio stations, not from mobile phone towers. The effects of radiation, both ionizing and non-ionizing, have been researched for over a century, and no deleterious effects have been found from the non-ionizing radiation until it is intense enough to raise the body temperature beyond the body's ability to regulate it, which requires more than 10 kilowatts per square metre at HF. RF is actually successfully used for some therapy and has long been used to cauterize surgical incisions. However, it was argued that no studies have been conducted on long-term exposure, that is, continuous exposure for 10 or more years. The Mobile Telecommunications and Health Research Program was set up with the support of the United Kingdom Government to investigate and report on a range of aspects of RF exposure. Their last report covers mobile phone towers as well as other topics and can be downloaded from http://www.mthr.org.index.htm. A newspaper report on their work appeared in the Melbourne Herald Sun on Wednesday the 12th of February, and I quote, "Mobile phones declared safe. Mobile phone radio waves are harmless to humans. That's the conclusion of a group of British researchers who have been investigating the issue since 2001, publishing close to 60 peer-reviewed papers on the way. In its final report, published yesterday, the Mobile Telecommunications and Health Research Program said it found no evidence that exposure to base station emissions during pregnancy affects the risk of developing cancer in early childhood, nor was there any link to leukemia. Laboratory testing also showed that radio waves had no effect on biological tissue on a range of frequencies. We can now be much more confident about the safety of modern telecommunication systems, said Program Chairman David Coggan." End of quote. While this is a solid, scientifically based report, it won't silence most of the protesters, in my opinion, because their motivations are too ingrained or have too much to do with money to be swayed by any report. It is, however, something that should stand up in any tribunal or court, and it is worth noting by any radio amateur. Thanks for that opinion piece from Ron Cook, VK3AFW.
You are listening to VK3OTN. VK3OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club, Australia, Incorporated, with the monthly news and information bulletin for members and friends of the club.
This article appeared in the March 2024 edition of OTN, contributed by Winston Nichols, VK7EM, RAOTC member number 899. It's entitled My Amateur Television Life. After qualifying as a radio amateur in 1964 and assembling my station in Burnie, I soon moved to Hobart and to a job at ABC Television. In my spare time I built many items, among them a transmitter for the 400 MHz band. I had the critical tuned lines silver-plated, and it provided a good power output with its built-in speech modulator. Also, while in Hobart, I acquired a second-hand Vidicon, a vital part of a video camera. Several years later, I had moved to Penguin, and the urge to transmit television signals was strong. TV cameras were rare in those days, and no one else in the state was involved in transmitting TV pictures. Maybe I could build a camera. I had the vital component, a Vidicon, so hunting around I found details of a homemade all-valve camera in an American magazine. So I collected the necessary parts and after some detailed work built the camera, including the deflection coil and focus coil assembly. Although geometrically the picture was slightly out of shape, due to my less than perfect assembling of the tiny coils, I had a usable picture. So my amateur television station, VK7EM/T, was on the air. The frequency band I was permitted to use was 400 MHz, 70 centimetres, in the UHF band. Few TV receivers at this time had UHF capability. This meant building a down converter which would allow reception of my signals. But I needed someone else to look for me. Another radio amateur, Tony VK7AX, was keen on amateur television, but he lived in Ulverston, quite out of range of my station, or so I thought. Could I bounce a signal off Mount Montgomery and into Ulverston, I wondered? Well, after some tests, Tony received my pictures. Not very well, but they were readable. We both wandered up Mount Montgomery one day and installed 2 small beam antennas on trees, one facing each town, and connected them together. Hopefully these would act as a passive repeater. I don't really know if they helped, but at least we had established a path. Some time later I pondered whether I could have my pictures received in Melbourne. Amongst my many amateur radio contacts there, several were interested in looking out for me. I even sent a down converter to Ron VK7AX in Geelong with instructions on how to set it up. In the warmer months, we frequently experienced Melbourne TV signals riding through, sometimes blocking, our local programs. So during the summer months of 1971-72, I transmitted for hours, beaming across Bass Strait and chatting with my friends who were watching for me. I used a homemade phased array antenna several metres above my radio room, and I estimated around 10 watts of output power. Then one Saturday morning I was in contact with Bill VK3ZBZ, and he said, "Well, it's rather like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but I can see a road and some houses." Wow! My camera was facing down over the streets of Penguin, and Bill could see this. I was so excited. This had never been done before. That's how it all started, and even the local newspaper heard about it. Digressing a little, in early 1975, colour television was about to arrive. My employer had a range of colour TVs in stock and ready for display, while the TV station transmitters had been upgraded for colour. However, the sets would not show colour until the official switch-on in March. The TV stations were withholding the critical colour burst pulse until that date. But thinking about it, I experimented on a new HMV colour set, made up a small circuit board where I extracted colour information from an early video stage and used that to create a false burst pulse. The only problem was it could come up in the wrong phase of 2 possible states. A quick channel reselect and there was perfect colour. So the Wilmot Street TV retailer had a colour TV operating and on display in the window for several months before colour TV had officially begun. Also at this time I was building my own colour TV set, which would give 20 years of fine service, but that's another story. Over the years I made many ATV contacts into Melbourne and Mount Gambier. The most distant two-way contact station was Peter VK3ZPA at Sunbury, and that record still stands today. Peter VK3BFG stirred up activity in Melbourne and soon had a large group of ATV enthusiasts. Some nights I would be in television contact with probably 10 stations from my little radio shack, all showing me their stations, equipment and scenes around their homes. I made up captioned picture cards, showed views around Penguin and even made an electric clock. Then Tony organised an ATV repeater station on Mount Duncan, and this gave two-way amateur television coverage all along the northwest coast. An exciting event occurred in 1983. I raced up Mount Duncan on a Friday evening and turned the receive antenna array towards Mount Ossa. Robert VK7ZOS and Jeff VK7GG were planning to transmit video signals from the summit the following day. They did. That was another historical moment for ATV. They carried a camera, batteries, radio equipment and my transmitter and food to the summit for several hours of transmissions. Pictures were received all along the coast. I later upgraded my station, building a new solid-state camera and transmitter, then advanced to colour transmissions and also to a higher frequency band of 1200 MHz or 23 centimetres, where I ran approximately 20 watts output from a homemade transmitter into a small long Yagi. By now the Melbourne amateurs and Peter VK7AX had built a 70cm ATV repeater in the Dandenongs, this being accessible in Penguin when the weather was favourable. An annual ATV QSO party was organised by Peter VK7AX, where stations contributed short video segments which were streamed worldwide. Outside Melbourne, Skype was used to link stations from around Australia and the USA into Peter's control room. My studio had an array of transmitters, monitors, receivers and recorders, and I built a multi-camera video switcher and call sign generator. All my transmitters and antennas were homemade. One evening in 2011, after a long session with the Melbourne ATV repeater group, I noticed colour bars appear on my 70cm receiver, and they weren't mine. A moment later, Rob, VK3TRX, appeared with a brilliantly clear picture. We had a long, wonderful chat where he showed me his studio and some equipment he was preparing for a field day. Then an outstanding two-way colour TV contact with Rod, VK3BQJ, at Lakes Entrance a year later, once again on 23cm FM video. We contacted many times. A local friend, Steve, VK7BI, took his portable station up Mount Montgomery one day and broadcast pictures while I monitored his signals. "Too many flies up here," he exclaimed as he swigged on his frozen drink bottle. My ATV life was a fun experience. Thanks again to Winston Nichols, VK7EM, for this article.
In keeping with tradition, we conclude this broadcast with a humorous short story. Golf in Heaven. Two 75-year-old men had been friends all of their lives. When it was clear that Frank was dying, Joe visited him every day. And one day Joe said, "Frank, we both loved playing golf all of our lives. Please do me one favour. When you get to heaven, somehow let me know if there's golf up there." Frank looked at Joe from his deathbed. "I'll do what I can," he said. Then he died. A few weeks later, Joe was awakened from a sound sleep by a blinding flash of white light and a voice calling out to him, "Joe, Joe, it's me, Frank." "Frank, where are you?" Joe said. "In heaven," replied Frank. "I have some really good news and a little bad news." "Tell me the good news first," said Joe. "The good news is that there is golf in heaven. Better yet, all of our old buddies who died before me are here too. Even better than that, we're all young again. Better still, it's always summer and it never rains. And best of all, we can play golf all we want and we never get tired." "That's fantastic," said Joe. "So what's the bad news?" "Well, Joe, the bad news is that you're in my 4-ball this Saturday," Frank said.
You've been listening to VK3OTN. VK3OTN is the official station of the Radio Amateurs Old Timers Club, Australia Incorporated. This concludes this month's News and Information Bulletin. The next RAOTC News and Information broadcast will take place on the first Monday of next month, on the same frequencies and at the same times as today, with the exception of January. If you have missed this broadcast, or want to listen to it again, then visit the RAOTC website. The address is www.raotc.org.au and follow the links on the main page. Thanks for being with us, and we hope you will join in the callbacks where callbacks are taken. This has been Alan, VK7AX, on behalf of the RAOTC broadcast team. 7-3 everyone.